On a quiet dirt road beneath the fading twilight of Creekside, Marybeth's heart raced, trapped in the tight grip of two menacing strangers. Her vintage pink dress fluttered helplessly as fear gripped her throat. Just then, from the shadows surged Onyx, her loyal companion, a powerful, dark-coated guardian with fierce amber eyes blazing protectively. He stood firm, fearless, and ready. In that moment, Marybeth realized she was never truly alone, as the line between fear and hope blurred into a fierce bond of love and courage. Autumn had quietly crept into Creekside, Vermont, painting the sleepy little town in vibrant shades of crimson, amber, and gold. The afternoons carried a distinct chill, a gentle reminder of the approaching winter. Leaves whispered softly as they drifted lazily down from towering maple trees lining the winding, quiet roads. It was precisely this serene setting that made the sudden appearance of the wounded creature all the more startling. Marybeth Lawson, at 27, was accustomed to solitude, petite but sturdy, with soft auburn curls framing her heart-shaped face and wide green eyes always hinting at gentle melancholy. She had become an integral yet quiet part of Creekside. After losing her parents tragically in a car accident 2 years prior, she had grown accustomed to loneliness, finding solace mostly in teaching third graders at Creekside Elementary. Her students adored her calm presence, kindness, and patience, unaware that their young teacher often spent evenings grappling with an emptiness her bright smiles cleverly concealed. On a crisp, late October afternoon, Marybeth walked slowly home along the familiar dirt road that skirted the forest's edge. Wrapped in her favorite wool coat, scarf bundled snugly around her neck, she drew comfort from the sound of dry leaves crunching beneath her boots. The air smelled of damp earth and distant wood smoke, soothing and nostalgic, yet tinged with an unnameable sadness. A sudden rustling in the brush to her right broke her reverie, and Marybeth froze, her heart racing slightly. At first, she saw nothing but shadows shifting among trees. Her curiosity mingled cautiously with unease. Slowly, a shape emerged, a massive, dark-coated animal limping painfully from the cover of the trees. The creature was undeniably imposing. Its thick, ebony fur glistened despite being caked with mud, and its amber eyes, sharp and intelligent, fixed intently upon her. Powerful shoulders hinted at strength beneath the animal's ragged appearance. Marybeth's initial instinct was fear, but upon noticing the dog's evident distress, her compassion overtook caution. "Easy," she whispered gently, carefully taking a step closer. The creature watched her warily but did not retreat. She noticed fresh blood staining its paw. "You're hurt, aren't you?" Marybeth asked softly, maintaining her soothing tone as she knelt slowly, reaching out her hand, palm open in a universal gesture of trust. The dog hesitated, amber eyes cautious but yearning. With careful deliberation, it limped closer, sniffing her fingertips delicately. Moments passed, and the silence between woman and beast stretched infinitely, each measuring the trustworthiness of the other. Finally, with a weary sigh, the great animal laid its massive head into her waiting palm. A profound connection bloomed between them instantly, unspoken yet deeply felt. "I think I'll call you Onyx," she whispered tenderly, stroking the dog's surprisingly soft coat. The dog responded by leaning gently against her, breathing heavily but steadily. By the time Marybeth reached home, the sun had dipped lower, casting the town in twilight hues. Her modest cottage sat nestled at the edge of town, ivy creeping warmly around its stone walls. She led Onyx inside carefully, noticing how he limped but stoically endured pain without complaint. Over the following days, Marybeth nursed Onyx back to health. Her students noticed her cheerful demeanor grow brighter, though they were unaware of the gentle giant who now shared her home. But Creekside was small, its residents vigilant and occasionally nosy. Word of the strange, imposing animal quickly spread throughout the quaint town. Concerned whispers rippled among residents who viewed the creature as either a wolf or something similarly unsettling. Mrs. Agatha Collins, Mary Beth's nearest neighbor, was among the first to voice concern openly. A stern yet compassionate woman in her early 70s, Mrs. Collins possessed a sharp gaze beneath a neatly pinned bun of silver hair. Although kind-hearted beneath her brusque exterior, she approached Mary Beth with suspicion. "Mary Beth, dear," Mrs. Collins began cautiously one morning as she handed over freshly baked muffins, "that creature of yours seems rather unusual, doesn't he? Are you sure he's safe?" "He's harmless," Mary Beth insisted, smiling reassuringly. Yet privately, even she recognized Onyx's formidable presence and undeniable intensity that stirred unease. Elsewhere in Creekside, another storm brewed beneath the peaceful facade. Ethan Rivers, the town's police chief, had his hands full investigating a growing mystery. Ethan, a lean, athletic man of 33 with neatly cropped dark brown hair, had piercing blue eyes that often appeared serious but held hidden warmth. His reputation for fairness and dedication earned him the town's respect. However, he bore silent scars from his past. His partner's unsolved death during a routine call 5 years earlier still weighed heavily upon him, driving his relentless pursuit of justice. Ethan stood beside a small paddock belonging to Mr. Jeremiah Brooks, the local dairy farmer whose livestock had mysteriously disappeared. Jeremiah was in his mid-60s, tall and rugged with sun-weathered skin and sparse white hair. Usually cheerful, recent events had left him noticeably rattled. "Never seen nothing like it," Jeremiah muttered gravely, gesturing toward the trampled fencing. "Whatever took 'em weren't natural." Ethan examined the scene thoughtfully, silently noting the splintered wood and disturbed earth. There were no obvious tracks, only chaos left behind. "I'll find out who's responsible, Jeremiah," Ethan assured him with quiet determination. Though suspicion in the village drifted toward Mary Beth's new pet, Ethan remained unconvinced. Something about these incidents felt deliberate and human-driven rather than animalistic. Days passed, and Onyx recovered swiftly under Mary Beth's gentle care. Despite her reassurances, villagers' wary gazes persisted, whispers growing louder and colder. Onyx seemed perceptive of their mistrust, always alert, ears swiveling toward distant sounds, watching Mary Beth protectively with those intense, luminous eyes. One evening, Ethan stopped Mary Beth outside the grocery store. His face was calm but cautious, his eyes gentle yet inquisitive. "Miss Lawson," he began politely, "I've heard you've found yourself a new friend." Mary Beth met his gaze confidently, appreciating his direct but respectful approach. "Onyx is gentle," she assured him quietly. "He's been hurt enough. He deserves kindness, not suspicion." Ethan nodded thoughtfully, sensing sincerity in her voice. "Just be careful," he advised gently, eyes softening briefly. "People in Creekside can be wary of things they don't understand." She smiled faintly in acknowledgement, heart slightly warmed by Ethan's unexpected compassion. That night, sitting beside Onyx by the cozy fireplace, Mary Beth stroked his dark fur gently, considering Ethan's warning. Onyx pressed closer, silently offering reassurance. Despite their doubts, Mary Beth felt deeply certain of one truth. Onyx was not simply her protector, he had become her family. Unbeknownst to her, however, Creekside's troubles had only begun to unfold. As autumn winds whispered ominously through the bare branches outside, neither Mary Beth nor Ethan could yet foresee how closely intertwined their paths would become.
Days turned colder in Creekside, and frost delicately glazed rooftops each morning, shimmering in the early sun before melting into pools of reflected sky. Despite the town's natural beauty, whispers of anxiety drifted through the quaint community. At the heart of this growing unease stood Onyx, the mysterious, imposing dog whose presence beside Marybeth Lawson had begun to stir discomfort among her neighbors. Marybeth tried to ignore the suspicious looks and muted conversations, focusing instead on caring for Onyx, whose loyalty and gentle demeanor in her presence contradicted the villagers' fears. Onyx, sensing Marybeth's tension, became even more protective, constantly positioned near her, alert and vigilant with ears attuned to every sound. Although she knew Onyx would never hurt anyone without reason, the mounting suspicion saddened Marybeth deeply, especially considering her profound loneliness after losing her parents. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan Rivers carefully examined another damaged fence at Henry Caldwell's sheep farm. Henry Caldwell, a wiry man in his mid-50s with graying hair, thin glasses perched precariously on his sharp nose, was usually quiet and reserved, but now he paced anxiously beside Ethan, gesturing toward his battered fencing and scattered feed bins. "Something unnatural is happening here, Ethan," Henry murmured nervously, glancing around as though fearing an invisible enemy. Ethan's careful blue eyes scanned the scene methodically, noticing deliberate damage that lacked the hallmarks of animal destruction. His suspicions grew stronger. Someone wanted these incidents blamed on wild creatures like Onyx. This realization unsettled Ethan deeply. He knew Creekside's delicate peace was fraying, and false accusations could ignite irreversible tension. Later that afternoon, Marybeth visited the local store for groceries. As she approached the wooden porch of Creekside Market, a cozy establishment owned by Margaret Davis, she could feel eyes burning into her back. Margaret Davis, a plump, motherly figure with short salt and pepper curls and gentle hazel eyes, had always greeted Marybeth warmly. Today, however, Margaret's typically welcoming smile faltered briefly before she forced a polite, cautious nod. "Good afternoon, Marybeth," Margaret said softly, her eyes darting nervously toward Onyx, who waited patiently by the store's entrance. "Hello, Margaret," Marybeth responded warmly, trying to ignore the awkward silence stretching between them. "Is everything all right?" Margaret hesitated, then lowered her voice carefully. "Marybeth, dear, you know I trust you. But that dog, well, some folks worry. He's intimidating, and with all these livestock disappearances..." Marybeth's heart tightened painfully. "Onyx hasn't hurt anyone," she said firmly, her voice carrying quiet conviction. "He's been nothing but protective and gentle." Margaret nodded sympathetically, yet still looked uneasy. "Just be careful, okay? Fear could drive good people to bad places." Her warning lingered as Marybeth finished her shopping quickly, eager to return home. The walk back felt colder, shadows of doubt trailing her footsteps. That evening, Ethan visited Marybeth, his tall, lean frame silhouetted against the twilight sky as she opened her front door. His eyes were serious yet kind beneath the porch light. "Evening, Miss Lawson. Mind if we talk?" Marybeth nodded quietly, inviting him inside. Onyx immediately moved closer to Marybeth, positioning himself protectively beside her chair, watching Ethan cautiously but calmly. Ethan smiled gently at the dog, respectful yet cautious. "I wanted you to know something," Ethan began thoughtfully. "Someone is intentionally damaging fences and property around town. They want folks to blame wild animals, especially your Onyx." Marybeth paled slightly, fingers tightening reflexively around Onyx's thick fur. "But why? Who would do such a thing?" Ethan's brow furrowed slightly, troubled. "I don't know yet, but I'm working on finding answers. Until then, you and Onyx should be careful. Fear makes people unpredictable." After Ethan left, Marybeth felt increasingly anxious, struggling to sleep that night despite Onyx's comforting presence beside her bed. She awoke at dawn, deciding that isolation wouldn't help matters. Determined to reconnect, she dressed warmly and walked Onyx toward the town center. Creekside's main street bustled with early morning activity, shopkeepers opening doors, villagers exchanging greetings. Yet, as Marybeth approached, conversations quieted noticeably, people turning away or whispering hurriedly among themselves. She recognized familiar faces, quickly averting eyes. Even the usually chatty Agnes Miller, a slender, elderly woman known for her kindness and quick wit, nervously shuffled away, mumbling excuses. Marybeth's heart sank, isolation pressing harder upon her shoulders. Yet, she refused to give in completely. Ignoring the stares, she stood firmly at the corner, chin raised defiantly as Onyx calmly sat beside her. She would not abandon him because of misplaced fear. Across the street, Ethan watched Marybeth's quiet courage from inside his parked cruiser, respect and sympathy tugging at his heart. He admired her resolve, knowing how deeply fear and suspicion could wound. Ethan vowed silently to himself he would uncover the truth and restore Creekside's peace. Returning to the station, Ethan began examining recent disturbances more carefully. His deputy, Oliver Reed, entered carrying photographs taken near the damaged farms. Oliver was young, only 24 tall, with shaggy blonde hair and eager brown eyes filled with earnest idealism. Ethan appreciated Oliver's meticulousness and unwavering loyalty. "Chief," Oliver began excitedly, "I found something interesting near the Brooks farm." Ethan examined the photographs closely, noticing faint tire tracks partially obscured by leaves, clearly indicating human activity rather than animal. "Good work, Oliver," Ethan murmured thoughtfully. This proves someone deliberately staged these incidents. Oliver nodded seriously. "Do you think someone has a grudge against Miss Lawson or her dog?" Ethan sighed deeply, his expression troubled. "Possibly, or maybe there's another agenda we haven't yet considered." Late that evening, under moonlight, Ethan revisited Henry Caldwell's farm alone, flashlight carefully scanning the darkened surroundings. As he moved quietly, he spotted movement behind the barn, a figure quickly disappearing into shadow. Ethan tensed immediately, his heart racing as he pursued silently. Yet, by the time he rounded the barn, the figure had vanished, leaving behind only scattered grain and newly sabotaged fencing. Returning to his vehicle frustrated but determined, Ethan realized Creekside faced a deeper threat. Someone deliberately fostered fear, exploiting villagers' mistrust to further their own ends. Resolving to protect Marybeth, Onyx, and the entire community from unraveling completely, Ethan drove home, mentally preparing for the difficult days ahead. Back at her cottage, Marybeth sat quietly beside Onyx, fire crackling softly in the fireplace, shadows dancing warmly across walls. Despite growing isolation, she drew strength from Onyx's quiet presence, feeling safer knowing he stood guard beside her. Gently stroking his dark fur, Marybeth whispered softly yet firmly, "We'll prove them wrong, Onyx." Together, Onyx pressed gently against her, amber eyes filled with unconditional trust and silent promise. Outside, leaves rustled softly beneath moonlit winds, carrying with them whispers of uncertainty. Yet, inside, Marybeth knew she would face whatever came next, strengthened by Onyx's unwavering loyalty and newfound determination never to surrender again to loneliness or fear. The nights in Creekside had grown increasingly cold, as if the chill carried whispers of the unease permeating the once serene town. Moonlight slipped quietly through gaps in the clouds, bathing Marybeth's cottage in a silvery glow that accentuated the shadows dancing restlessly across her walls. Inside, Marybeth sat curled up on her old, plush sofa, absently stroking Onyx's thick, midnight black fur as she tried to read, though her thoughts remained scattered. Onyx lay quietly at her feet, amber eyes watchful, ears twitching slightly at every faint creak or rustle outside. Suddenly, his ears flattened, and a low, deep growl rumbled from his chest. Marybeth's heart quickened, and she set her book aside, tense as she peered through the window into the inky darkness. The yard seemed deceptively calm, but Onyx's alert posture made her uneasy. Moments later, she heard it, the crunch of footsteps against dry leaves near her porch. Before she could move, there was a loud, deliberate knock on the door. Swallowing hard, Marybeth rose, her voice shaking slightly as she called out, "Who is it?" A muffled voice replied, rough and unfamiliar. We need to talk. Come outside, Marybeth. Just you. Marybeth hesitated, dread creeping into her bones. Glancing down, she saw Onyx poised protectively beside her, hackles raised, body rigid. Summoning courage she didn't feel, Marybeth cracked the door slightly, leaving the chain latched. She glimpsed two shadowy figures in dark jackets, their faces partially obscured by the dim light. "What do you want?" she asked cautiously, pulse hammering in her ears. "You need to get rid of that dog." The taller figure sneered coldly, stepping forward enough for Marybeth to see a broad-shouldered man with closely cropped brown hair and a faint scar trailing along his jaw. "It's causing trouble. Folks don't feel safe." "Onyx hasn't hurt anyone," Marybeth replied firmly, trying to sound stronger than she felt. "Leave us alone." The man leaned in closer, voice lowering dangerously. It wasn't a request. Suddenly, Onyx lunged at the door with a ferocious bark, teeth bared, eyes blazing fiercely. The strangers recoiled sharply, stumbling back in shock. "Get that thing under control," shouted the second figure, a shorter man with greasy blonde hair and nervous eyes, backing away hastily. Marybeth slammed the door shut, heart racing, locking it securely as Onyx paced restlessly, growling softly, still vigilant. Unable to shake her fear, Marybeth finally realized she couldn't face this alone. The next morning, feeling drained yet resolute, she crossed the frosty grass separating her cottage from her neighbor's home. Agatha Collins had lived beside her family since Marybeth was a child, a reliable presence whose sharp tongue masked genuine kindness. Agatha was in her early 70s, petite and slender, always impeccably dressed in simple but elegant clothes. Her silver hair, always neatly pinned, framed a stern face softened by twinkling gray eyes that revealed her true nature. Over the years, Agatha had seen too much loneliness and loss, making her fiercely protective of those she quietly cared for. Marybeth found Agatha already tending her garden, bundled in a knitted shawl against the chill. "Good morning, Marybeth," Agatha greeted briskly, eyes narrowing slightly as she noted Marybeth's troubled expression. "Agatha, something terrible happened last night," Marybeth admitted softly, wrapping her coat tighter. "Two men threatened me, demanding I get rid of Onyx." Agatha's expression hardened immediately. "I fear it would come to this. Folks letting fear control them." Marybeth's voice quivered. "I am scared, Agatha. I need your help." Agatha straightened, resolve clear in her eyes. "Of course, dear. You aren't alone." Meanwhile, Ethan Rivers had spent the night poring over evidence collected from the farms. The photographs Oliver provided clearly showed signs of sabotage. Ethan's suspicion focused on Carson and Dale Spencer, brothers with unsavory reputations who lived in the town outskirts. Carson Spencer, the older sibling, was tall and intimidating, with close-cropped brown hair, broad shoulders, and a jagged scar across his jawline, remnants from bar fights that defined his turbulent past. Dale Spencer was shorter, leaner, with greasy blonde hair, perpetually nervous eyes, and a twitchy demeanor. A follower by nature, easily influenced by his brother. Ethan recalled several prior encounters with the Spencer brothers, typically for minor theft or disturbances, but lately, they had been unusually quiet. Now, evidence suggested a sinister purpose behind their silence. Determined to verify his suspicions, Ethan decided to visit the Spencer property. Late morning sunlight filtered weakly through sparse clouds as Ethan parked discreetly near their ramshackle house, nestled on a wooded plot littered with rusted machinery. Approaching quietly, Ethan noticed recent tire tracks matching those near the sabotaged fences. Suddenly, a door creaked open, and Dale emerged, looking startled to see Ethan. "Morning, Dale," Ethan called evenly, watching Dale's eyes shift nervously. "Everything all right out here?" Yeah. "Sheriff," Dale mumbled, avoiding eye contact, hands trembling slightly. "Just working." Ethan nodded slowly, gaze sharp. "Been around the farms lately, Dale?" Dale visibly paled, shaking his head vehemently. "No, Sheriff, we keep to ourselves." "Well," Ethan replied calmly, deliberately inspecting the surroundings. If you see anything suspicious, let me know. Dale nodded rapidly, stepping back inside, door shutting hastily behind him. Ethan left, certain Dale knew more than he admitted. Returning to town, Ethan found Marybeth leaving Agatha's cottage, accompanied closely by Onyx. He approached them, concern evident. "Marybeth, is everything all right?" Marybeth shook her head slightly, explaining the previous night's incident. Ethan listened intently, his expression darkening. "Did you recognize them?" he asked carefully. Marybeth hesitated, recalling the scarred face. One was tall, broad, with a scar on his jawline. The other shorter, blonde, nervous-looking. Ethan's jaw tightened. "That sounds like Carson and Dale Spencer." Marybeth's breath caught. "Are they dangerous?" Ethan nodded solemnly. "Potentially, but I won't let anything happen to you or Onyx." That evening, Ethan discreetly arranged extra patrols near Marybeth's home. He also warned Oliver Reed, his dedicated young deputy, to stay vigilant. Oliver eagerly agreed, seriousness deepening his normally cheerful eyes. Later, Marybeth sat beside Agatha in her cozy living room, warmed by tea and the older woman's calm presence. Onyx lay protectively at Marybeth's feet, seemingly reassured by Agatha's kindness. "You're brave, Marybeth," Agatha encouraged gently. "Folks are frightened, but they'll come around. Until then, I'm with you." Marybeth felt comforted, grateful to finally have someone beside her during the growing crisis. Across town, Carson and Dale met secretly behind their house, anxiety shadowing Dale's features. "Carson, this isn't going how you promised," Dale whispered nervously. Carson scowled deeply, eyes glittering coldly. "We'll handle it. No one's going to stop us, especially not some stubborn woman and her dog." Dale looked doubtful, but he knew better than to challenge Carson. Night fell again on Creekside, shadows stretching ominously beneath the pale moonlight. Ethan sat quietly in his patrol car near Marybeth's home, watchful yet restless. He knew the danger was far from over. Inside, Marybeth curled up beside Onyx, his steady presence calming her lingering fears. She glanced toward Agatha's warmly lit cottage next door, feeling reassured. With Ethan and Agatha's support, Marybeth found renewed strength to face the uncertain days ahead, certain of one unwavering truth: she would fiercely protect Onyx, just as he protected her. The sun was sinking slowly behind the hills, casting long, thin shadows over the winding dirt road that skirted the outskirts of Creekside. The sky blushed softly in shades of orange and lavender, the gentle breeze carrying with it the crisp, faint scent of fallen leaves. Marybeth Lawson walked briskly, her boots crunching rhythmically against the gravel. She clutched her worn leather satchel tightly, eager to return home after spending the afternoon helping Agatha Collins reorganize her beloved library. Her thoughts wandered, troubled by recent events and hoping the situation would soon resolve peacefully. Lost in thought, Marybeth didn't immediately notice the quiet hum of an approaching vehicle. Her senses sharpened abruptly when an old pickup truck slowed and pulled up beside her. Her pulse quickened, recognizing the vehicle as Carson Spencer's rusty, battered truck. Before she could react, Carson and Dale jumped out swiftly, cutting off her escape. Carson's tall, broad-shouldered frame loomed aggressively, scar prominent in the fading daylight. Dale, shorter but wiry and nervous, glanced anxiously at his brother, reluctant yet compliant. Both men wore dark leather jackets, their postures radiating menace. "We warned you, Marybeth," Carson hissed coldly, stepping forward, his face inches from hers. "You just couldn't leave well enough alone, could you?" "Let me go," Marybeth demanded, voice trembling slightly but filled with defiance. "People will find out what you've been doing." Dale shuffled uneasily behind Carson, eyes darting nervously. "Maybe we should just go, Carson," he muttered hesitantly, tugging his brother's sleeve. Carson shook him off impatiently, grasping Marybeth's arm roughly. "You stay quiet," he snapped at Dale, returning his fierce glare to Marybeth. "No one is going to believe you, Marybeth. You're just causing trouble for yourself." Fear surged through Marybeth as she tried pulling away. Carson tightened his grip painfully, making her wince. "Let go," she protested desperately, eyes scanning around for help. But the road was empty, silent except for the distant rustling of wind through bare branches. Suddenly, a low, threatening growl echoed from the shadows behind them. All three turned sharply to see Onyx emerging from the woods, eyes blazing fiercely in the twilight, fur bristling aggressively, teeth bared in protective fury. Carson's confidence faltered briefly, releasing Marybeth instinctively as Onyx advanced slowly, menacingly. "Get that animal away from me," Carson barked, trying to hide his sudden fear. Dale already scrambled back, retreating toward the truck. Marybeth stepped quickly aside, stumbling slightly, watching as Onyx lunged swiftly, powerful and decisive, snapping viciously near Carson's leg. Carson stumbled backward in alarm, tripping awkwardly to the ground. Dale helped his brother hastily, panicking as Onyx growled and snapped again, forcing both men back toward their vehicle. The brothers scrambled desperately into their truck, tires skidding against gravel as they sped away, leaving behind a cloud of dust. Marybeth exhaled shakily, adrenaline subsiding into profound relief. She knelt, embracing Onyx tightly, tears blurring her vision. "You saved me," she whispered gratefully, feeling his comforting warmth and strength. Meanwhile, Ethan Rivers carefully examined the roadside scene an hour later, headlights from his cruiser illuminating the gravel path clearly. Ethan's deputy, Oliver Reed, stood nearby, meticulously photographing tire marks and disturbances in the dirt. "Chief, these tracks match Spencer's truck perfectly," Oliver reported grimly, looking thoughtfully at Ethan. Ethan nodded seriously, his suspicions about Carson and Dale Spencer solidifying into certainty. "Document everything carefully, Oliver. I want every detail clear. We'll need this evidence airtight." Oliver nodded earnestly, diligently continuing his work. Ethan approached Marybeth gently, observing her still visibly shaken yet determined demeanor. Onyx sat protectively beside her, eyes watchful but calm. "Marybeth," Ethan began softly, sincere concern evident. "Are you all right?" Marybeth nodded slowly, offering a small, reassuring smile. "Thanks to Onyx, yes. Those men, they're dangerous, Ethan." Ethan sighed deeply, frustration evident in his thoughtful blue eyes. "They've been hiding behind fear. But now we have something concrete." He hesitated briefly, then continued firmly. "I think it's time we work together openly. I need your help identifying exactly what you know about the Spencers." Marybeth agreed immediately, understanding the necessity clearly. "Of course, I'll do whatever I can. They can't keep terrorizing Creekside." Later that evening, safely back at her cottage, Marybeth brewed tea, her hands still trembling slightly from the lingering shock. Ethan joined her at the small kitchen table, sorting carefully through evidence files he brought along. Onyx rested quietly at Marybeth's feet, calm yet vigilant. Ethan glanced thoughtfully at Marybeth, appreciating her courage despite evident exhaustion. "Tell me everything you've observed about Carson and Dale," he prompted gently. Marybeth took a deep breath, recounting previous encounters and suspicions, from whispered village concerns to Carson's aggressive threats. Ethan listened attentively, jotting meticulous notes, occasionally nodding encouragement. As they spoke, a quiet knock came at the door. Ethan cautiously opened it, revealing Agatha Collins, standing resolutely on the porch. Her stern, silver-haired figure, wrapped in a thick coat, entered swiftly, eyes determined. "I heard what happened," Agatha stated firmly, approaching Marybeth immediately. "I'm glad you're safe, dear." Marybeth smiled faintly, comforted deeply by Agatha's unwavering support. "Thank you, Agatha." Agatha nodded decisively, addressing Ethan directly. "This nonsense needs to end, Sheriff Rivers. Carson and Dale have frightened everyone far too long." Ethan acknowledged her respectfully. "I completely agree, Mrs. Collins. I promise we're very close to stopping them." Agatha's gaze softened slightly, placing a comforting hand on Marybeth's shoulder. "You've done the right thing, Marybeth. We stand together." Marybeth felt tears welling again, overwhelmed by gratitude for the steadfast allies now standing beside her. Across town, Carson and Dale argued heatedly in their shabby house, tension thick. Dale paced anxiously, his nerves frayed completely. "This has gone too far, Carson. The dog nearly took your leg off." Carson glared furiously, jaw clenched tightly. "We can't back down now. Too much is at stake." Dale's voice quivered desperately. "I don't want anyone hurt, Carson. We're just supposed to scare folks, not harm them." Carson growled impatiently, anger simmering dangerously beneath his cold exterior. "It's too late for doubts, Dale. They're onto us. We finish what we started or face consequences." Dale paled visibly, feeling trapped, reluctantly nodding as he shrank back fearfully. Carson turned away dismissively, staring out into the darkened woods, planning their next desperate move. That night, Ethan, having gathered comprehensive evidence and confident in Marybeth's brave cooperation, drove home thoughtfully. Creekside had suffered too long beneath the shadow cast by Carson and Dale Spencer. Ethan vowed quietly, yet fiercely, he would protect the peace he cherished so deeply. Returning to her bedroom, Marybeth lay awake a while, feeling safer with Onyx curled comfortably beside her bed, breathing steady and comforting. She reflected gratefully on Ethan and Agatha's unwavering presence, knowing she was no longer alone in her battle against fear. Eventually drifting into peaceful sleep, she held onto the reassuring thought that courage and truth were finally within reach. Morning broke over Creekside, painting the horizon in soft shades of pale gold and dusty rose. A thin mist lingered briefly over the town, vanishing quietly beneath the rising sun, as if nature itself sensed that today marked a turning point for everyone. Ethan Rivers woke early, sleep eluding him as always when memories surfaced from places he'd tried to keep buried. Ethan had been haunted for years by the tragic loss of his best friend, Jake Merritt, who died 8 years prior in a confrontation eerily similar to the current troubles plaguing Creekside. Jake had been Ethan's closest companion since childhood, a warm-hearted and courageous man with bright blue eyes and a contagious laugh. Ethan could still recall vividly the phone call that had shattered his world. A desperate late-night plea from Jake's wife, Ellen, her voice breaking as she told Ethan that Jake had been fatally injured confronting thieves on his ranch. Jake's death had left an indelible scar on Ethan, driving his unwavering determination to protect Creekside from ever experiencing the pain again. As he prepared coffee, Ethan's resolve strengthened further, knowing the town meeting schedule for that afternoon was crucial. He and Marybeth had meticulously gathered evidence against Carson and Dale Spencer, certain they were behind the recent attacks and livestock thefts. Ethan glanced briefly at a framed photograph on his mantel. Jake and himself, smiling broadly, arm in arm at Jake's ranch, before leaving to finalize preparations. Across town, Marybeth Lawson dressed carefully, nerves fluttering inside her. She stroked Onyx reassuringly, his comforting presence providing strength. The faithful dog had become her protector and friend, steadfast and gentle beneath his intimidating exterior. Marybeth knew today would determine the town's future perception of both Onyx and herself. She met Ethan early outside Creekside Small Community Center, the designated meeting place already bustling with villagers murmuring nervously, anxious for answers. Ethan greeted Marybeth warmly, appreciating the calm courage in her soft green eyes. "Ready?" he asked softly. Marybeth nodded firmly. "Ready." Inside, the community center quickly filled. Familiar faces packed the worn wooden benches. Margaret Davis, the kindly shopkeeper who now smiled gently at Marybeth. Henry Caldwell, the wiry farmer whose property had first been targeted. Oliver Reed, Ethan's dedicated deputy, eyes bright and attentive. Agatha Collins, dignified and stern, sat near the front, her supportive gaze unwaveringly fixed upon Marybeth. Ethan stepped confidently onto the small stage, immediately commanding attention. "Thank you all for coming," he began calmly. We've gathered here to discuss troubling incidents affecting our town. A ripple of anxious murmurs moved through the crowd. Ethan held up a hand for quiet, continuing steadily. Recent livestock disappearances, property sabotage, and threats against certain residents, specifically Miss Lawson, have frightened many of us. But today we have answers. The audience quieted instantly, eyes riveted expectantly on Ethan. We've uncovered substantial evidence identifying Carson and Dale Spencer as responsible, Ethan declared firmly, displaying a folder filled with photographs and documents. Shocked whispers erupted, several villagers exchanging alarmed glances. Carson abruptly stood from the back, voice raised angrily. "That's ridiculous. You have no proof." Ethan fixed Carson with a cold stare, voice steady yet authoritative. "Actually, we do." Oliver stepped forward swiftly, handing Ethan clear photographs showing tire marks at various scenes matching Carson's truck, broken fences deliberately cut, and images of scattered feed, clearly indicating intentional sabotage. Ethan continued evenly. "We've matched your truck's tires to every scene. Witnesses have described you threatening Marybeth Lawson." Marybeth stood calmly beside Ethan, addressing the crowd with quiet dignity. "Carson and Dale threatened me multiple times, demanding I abandon Onyx, my protector. But Onyx has only ever defended me. Without him, I'd likely be harmed or worse by now." Agatha rose gracefully, addressing villagers firmly, her clear voice carrying undeniable authority. "I myself have seen Onyx's gentle nature and fierce loyalty firsthand. Our fear blinded us to the truth. These two men exploited our anxieties to cover their crimes." Carson glared furiously, visibly panicking. "You have no right accusing us," he shouted, desperation evident. Dale tugged nervously at his sleeve, murmuring anxiously, "Let's go, Carson. It's over." Margaret Davis stood from her seat, speaking softly yet resolutely, eyes meeting Marybeth's warmly. "We owe you an apology, Marybeth. Fear made us blind. We should have trusted you and Onyx." A collective nod of agreement rippled through villagers, recognition dawning clearly. Ethan continued gravely. "Carson, Dale, your actions harmed innocent people and threatened our community's peace. Deputies have warrants for your arrest." Carson lunged aggressively forward, shouting angrily, but Oliver quickly intercepted, handcuffing him swiftly. Dale surrendered without resistance, visibly defeated, head bowed sadly. Ethan watched solemnly as both men were escorted outside. Silence followed briefly. Then relieved murmurs spread through villagers. Henry Caldwell approached Marybeth cautiously, apologetic sincerity evident in his lined face. "I misjudged your dog badly, Marybeth. I am sorry." Marybeth smiled warmly, forgiving instantly. "We understand, Henry." Fear clouded many good people's judgment. Ethan stood quietly, observing healing beginning already within Creekside. He noticed Marybeth's relieved smile, Agatha's dignified satisfaction, and felt profound gratitude Jake's tragedy would not be repeated. Later, walking slowly home beside Marybeth and Onyx beneath the softening twilight, Ethan confided quietly, "Years ago, I lost my best friend, Jake Merritt, in a similar tragedy. Thieves targeted his ranch, and Jake paid with his life." Marybeth listened gently, eyes soft with compassion. "I am sorry, Ethan. That must have been devastating." Ethan nodded slowly, sadness briefly shadowing his thoughtful blue eyes. "It changed me, Marybeth. I vowed never to allow anything like that to happen here. Protecting this town became my way of honoring Jake's memory." Marybeth placed a comforting hand on Ethan's arm. "He'd be proud of you today, Ethan. Your strength protected all of us." Ethan smiled softly, feeling lighter for sharing the painful truth. Ahead, Onyx walked contentedly, ears relaxed, calm and protective, sensing peace finally settling gently over Creekside. Nearby, Agatha stood watching warmly from her porch, nodding approvingly, heartened seeing Marybeth safe, supported, and happier than she'd been in years. For the first time in a long while, Marybeth genuinely felt part of Creekside again, no longer isolated by fear or suspicion. Ethan, too, found solace in the community's renewal, understanding clearly now the profound meaning behind protecting others. As evening quietly enveloped Creekside in comforting shadows, a gentle peace blossomed anew within its residents' hearts. Truth, courage, and trust had finally dispelled fear's lingering darkness, proving undeniably Onyx's unwavering loyalty and Ethan's quiet heroism had safeguarded Creekside from repeating past tragedies. Spring arrived gently in Creekside, breathing new life into the once troubled town. Soft sunlight spilled generously over budding trees, and fields awakened, adorned with vibrant blossoms in every shade. With Carson and Dale Spencer safely behind bars, tranquility replaced suspicion, allowing the town's heartbeat to resume its steady, comforting rhythm. Marybeth Lawson found herself walking more often along Creekside's quiet pathways, accompanied by Onyx, whose glossy, ebony coat now gleamed beautifully beneath the gentle sun. Onyx had transformed from feared outsider to beloved guardian, greeted warmly by townsfolk, who now recognized his quiet bravery. Marybeth felt warmth in every genuine smile directed their way, a stark and welcome contrast from months past. Inspired by this newfound sense of belonging, Marybeth began envisioning a small sanctuary, a haven to shelter and nurture abandoned or injured animals. With encouragement from Ethan Rivers and her steadfast neighbor, Agatha Collins, she embraced this dream wholeheartedly. After weeks of planning and determination, Marybeth stood proudly one bright afternoon, surveying her newly completed sanctuary. The modest wooden building, painted in cheerful shades of pale blue and white, nestled cozily beside her cottage, encircled by freshly planted flowers that Agatha had carefully selected and arranged. Above the welcoming entrance hung a hand-carved wooden sign, painted elegantly in gentle script reading, Onyx's Haven. Onyx himself sat regally by Marybeth's side, ears perked attentively, amber eyes warm and content. Agatha Collins approached quietly, her stern features softening into a proud, affectionate smile. "You've done beautifully, dear," she praised warmly, gently patting Marybeth's shoulder. Creekside needed something hopeful after everything. Marybeth smiled gratefully, heart swelling joyfully, seeing the sanctuary finally realized. "Thank you, Agatha. None of this would have been possible without your help and Ethan's encouragement." Agatha's eyes twinkled knowingly, observing Marybeth closely. "Ethan's good for you," she said meaningfully, turning toward the road, where Ethan Rivers approached slowly, a gentle smile illuminating his thoughtful face. Ethan carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, freshly picked from fields nearby, their vibrant colors matching the buoyant mood filling Creekside. Marybeth, Ethan greeted warmly, eyes tenderly soft as he handed her the flowers. "Congratulations. Creekside is lucky to have someone as caring as you." Marybeth blushed gently, accepting the bouquet, her heart fluttering slightly at Ethan's sincere affection. "Thank you, Ethan. Your support has meant so much." Ethan glanced appreciatively at the sanctuary, genuine admiration clear in his expression. Jake would have loved seeing this. He always believed animals deserved kindness and protection. Marybeth's eyes softened compassionately, sensing Ethan's lingering sadness. "Jake inspired you profoundly, Ethan. Honoring his memory by protecting Creekside makes you brave in ways he'd be proud of." Ethan took a slow breath, deeply touched by her words. "Perhaps meeting you was part of healing," he admitted gently, voice quiet and sincere. "You helped me find peace again, Marybeth." Nearby, a cheerful commotion drew their attention. Oliver Reed, Ethan's deputy, approached energetically, leading a small golden retriever puppy that wriggled excitedly, wide eyes curious and bright. Oliver smiled broadly, youthful enthusiasm radiating from his eager face. "Found this little guy wandering near Henry Caldwell's place," Oliver explained happily. "Thought Onyx's Haven might have room." Marybeth knelt eagerly, gently greeting the puppy, whose affectionate, playful nature immediately captivated her. "Absolutely," she replied warmly, smiling brightly at Oliver. "We'll always have room for animals needing love." Ethan watched Marybeth tenderly, heartwarming further seeing her genuine compassion. He gently placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. "He's lucky you opened your heart to Creekside." The sanctuary soon filled with other grateful animals. Abandoned kittens discovered near Margaret Davis's shop. A gentle old hound dog surrendered by an elderly farmer unable to care properly anymore, and a quiet gray mare previously neglected at a neighboring farm. Marybeth cared deeply for each creature, diligently ensuring they received compassion, safety, and love. Townsfolk regularly visited Onyx's haven, bringing donations or volunteering time, further healing divisions that had fractured their community. Even Margaret Davis frequently stopped by, delivering freshly baked treats, now genuinely warm toward Marybeth and deeply fond of Onyx. Creekside grew increasingly peaceful, strengthened by collective acts of kindness. Ethan visited the sanctuary often, cherishing quiet conversations shared with Marybeth as they cared for animals together. Their relationship blossomed naturally, built gently upon mutual understanding, respect, and shared hopes for the future. One mild evening, beneath a sky streaked softly with twilight pastels, Ethan and Marybeth walked leisurely along Creekside's main street, Onyx strolling contentedly between them. Ethan paused thoughtfully, meeting Marybeth's gentle gaze sincerely. "Marybeth, I want you to know how grateful I am. Your courage and kindness restored my faith in our town. You've become incredibly important to me." Marybeth smiled warmly, eyes shining softly beneath streetlights casting golden halos around them. "You helped me believe in Creekside again, Ethan. Sharing this journey together made me realize I'm not alone anymore." Ethan gently reached for Marybeth's hand, holding it tenderly, a silent promise exchanged beneath the peaceful evening sky. Agatha Collins watched discreetly from her porch, heartened seeing the gentle happiness quietly unfolding. Later, Ethan walked Marybeth home, comfortable silence lingering warmly between them. Onyx bounded slightly ahead, occasionally glancing affectionately back. Marybeth leaned gently against Ethan's shoulder, feeling protected, understood, and deeply content. Reaching her cottage, Ethan paused beneath softly rustling branches, gently cupping Marybeth's cheek, his expression tender yet certain. "Creekside is truly home now. Because of you," he murmured softly, sincerity unmistakable. Marybeth smiled warmly, heart overflowing, knowing she'd finally found a genuine place of belonging. "It feels the same for me, Ethan." Ethan kissed Marybeth softly, a gentle yet meaningful promise exchanged, sealing their newfound bond. Nearby, Onyx sat quietly, amber eyes watchful and approving, guardian witnessing Creekside's quiet rebirth of trust, compassion, and hope. In the weeks following, Creekside thrived further, warmed by growing connections within the community. Ethan, Marybeth, and Onyx became comforting fixtures throughout town, warmly welcomed everywhere. Their shared efforts protecting animals at Onyx's haven strengthened community bonds, promoting ongoing unity. One particularly radiant spring morning, Marybeth stood beside Ethan outside the sanctuary, deeply happy observing villagers cheerfully interacting, volunteering together, laughter and kindness abundantly evident. She exchanged contented glances with Ethan, certain Creekside's future held peace, joy, and profound connections worth cherishing. Nearby, beneath gentle sunlight, Onyx lay calmly, ears perked contentedly, proud protector of both Marybeth's heart and the peaceful haven named lovingly in his honor. In life, just as in Creekside, fear can blind us from recognizing the true protectors and heroes around us. This story gently reminds us to open our hearts, trust in kindness, and never judge too quickly. Perhaps you have an Onyx in your own life, someone or something misunderstood, but filled with quiet courage and unwavering loyalty. Take a moment today to appreciate those who protect and love you silently, without expecting anything in return. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope and encouragement. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So leave a comment below and type amen if you believe in the power of trust, love, and compassion. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. May God bless you all abundantly. Amen.